welcome to Asian Cosell. So I have a video here by what is it, Calvin Castillo, and he interviews a Korean who grew up in the Philippines, and this is just so wild to me. But just like I grew up in America, we have Koreans that grew up in the Philippines. So let's listen in on this interview. And here we go.
The people here are so nice, and if you're careful, it's a great place to live, and the weather is always so good. I would recommend it better than being like four season country.
This is Juwon, born in South Korea and have been living in the Philippines for 23 years. She is a content creator and she speaks Tagalog like a local. In this video, Juwon shared about her life as a kid in the Philippines, studying in the Philippines, and the reverse culture shock she encountered whenever visiting South Korea. I'm Calvin Cosell, navigating expat life.
What's your name and where you from?
Hi, my name is juwonee, and I'm from what? Korea? Philippines.
Korea, Philippines. You're from Korea and Philippines.
Yes.
Okay. For how long you have been in the Philippines?
I've been in the Philippines for around 23 years.
23 years.
Yes.
Okay, but you were born in Korea, right?
Yeah. I transferred here when I was 4 to 5 years old.
So which means you were born in Korea but raised in the Philippines. What was being raised in the Philippines as a Korean?
Hindi ko sure. I feel more Filipino than being Korean because I feel much more comfortable talking in Taglish than Korean language-wise. And also, I think my humor is more matched with the Filipino humor in more so than Korean humor.
Oh, okay. But you went to an English school or a Filipino school?
I went to La Salle Lipa for high school, and then I went to University of the Philippines, Diliman for college.
For college.
Yes.
And what was your major, if you don't mind?
I graduated with landscape architecture.
Wow. How often do you go to Korea?
While I was growing up here, not very often. Like we rarely go there. So, but recently, ever since the pandemic, quite often because my brother lives there, so I try to visit him every once and then because he's alone. So I want to like help him cope with being alone and like the homesickness he feels there in Korea.
Okay. You have mentioned that you kind of feel more Filipino than Korean, right? What culture was introduced to you by your parents when you were growing up?
For 23 years. She is a content.
But you went to an English school or a Filipino school?
And because my brother lives there, so I try to visit him every once and then because he's alone. So I want to like help him cope.
Okay, I bet his brother probably same thing, grew up, speaking Taglish. I could see how he's gonna be alone there, maybe a little bit, kind of like the cultural shock of Korea. Of course, I even had the culture shock myself. So so I can imagine him just like trying to adapt to the Korean lifestyle because he probably going to university and he's gonna have to do military service. So let's see.
Cope with being alone and like the homesickness he feels there in Korea.
Okay. You have mentioned that you kind of feel more Filipino than Korean, right? What culture was introduced to you by your parents when you were growing up?
At home, I think it was more Korean culture because my parents are Koreans and they have been living majority of their life in Korea. But now it's almost half-half. Their life has been like half Philippines, half Korea. But when I was growing up at home, it was more Korean culture, like yung you don't wear slippers inside the house, and also my mom's cooking is more Korean based because that's what she knows how to cook, and that's what my parents like to eat.
Same here.
So yeah.
If you look back, are there any similarities between Filipino and Korean culture?
Similarities, I think it's the family values. I think both countries value family very much in a way that family time is very important in every aspect of life. I think pati love life. Like in Philippines, there's also ligawan, di ba? And you have to ask the permission ng parents.
Yeah.
In Korea, you also have not necessarily ligawan, but it's also a very important aspect na you involve your family into the relationship. So a very big part of culture is family.
You came here like at 4 years old. I'm pretty sure you kind of knew about the language, about Korean language. But you coming here, it was like English and Tagalog.
Yeah.
Was it difficult for you to learn the local language here in the Philippines?
I don't think so because when I came here, I barely knew Korean as well.
Oh wow.
And when I came here, we had a neighbor who, well, was Filipino. And naglaro agad kami. And we instantly matched for so like we played agad. Like
Okay.
taya-tayaan. I don't know how because we didn't know how to communicate, but we played. And then my parents were like frantic because we were moving
Oh God. Yeah. Oh yeah. If you want to take a cruise, go ahead.
that day. And then like my brother and I were disappearing constantly. And we're like, where's my children? And then we were inside the house of our neighbor, like coloring books. So I didn't have much struggle. I think that's the reason why I didn't struggle much learning Tagalog because in my friends were all Tagalog speaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
How was like schooling here in the Philippines?
In terms of high school, there was this weird, I don't know if it's just our high school, but there was this weird rule of you have to only speak English or you get parang may parusa if you speak Tagalog in certain like outside the Filipino class time. So which actually helped in the long run in learning Tagalog because I get tempted more to speak Tagalog kasi bawal. So I guess it helped.
Yeah, because like I've noticed like you speak English and then you throw kind of like some Tagalog line like Taglish.
Yeah.
Does it happen? I mean, it happens with Korean as well. Like you would be speaking in English and then you will be throwing some Korean words.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's how
Yeah.
me and my brother talk. Kasi we know three languages, so that's the most comfortable way to talk, like the mix of three. Because sometimes I don't know the word in this language, but I know it in this one. So that's why people say, you're so smart, you know three languages, but it's not. It's really nakakabobo knowing three languages.
Oh, how funny! I do know Bobo and all that, but yeah, yeah, just like because as an American myself, we'll just say, "Yo, man, I want some coffee," and then Koreans will say, "Kopi," or we're like, "Yo, throw me some bananas." Ba na na. It's little different pronunciations of the Korean and English. So yeah, I get where she's getting at. So
Because I don't know all. I feel stupid in all three.
Well, it's the same as me. Like I speak Portuguese, right? If I'm mad, I just want to speak Portuguese. I'm more comfortable speaking in Portuguese. What about you? When you're like super mad with
Yeah.
someone or even with your brother, which language you kind of feel more comfortable to speak? Or like I don't know,
Tagalog.
Tagalog, right?
Because it's the hard accent, maybe. Or maybe it's because it's the most one that I heard. Because Korean curse words I didn't hear that often and I only recently learned. So it's not nakadikit sa aking bibig.
So it's
not-
not okay.
it's not
And
natural.
Let me just ask you this, right? For other people that are watching us, they haven't been to the Philippines as well. Like, let me say, like people from Korea, they're planning to move in here, and they don't have that much idea about the country. Even though, I mean, Philippines is also in Southeast Asia. What like advices would you give to these people?
Mm, I feel like in Korea, especially, there's quite a negative
Yeah.
stereotype for the Philippine country because of the news that goes into the Korean news. Kasi syempre, news it's usually bad news. So there's like a lot
Yeah.
of usually it's the news of like crimes and those stuff and that's the
Yeah.
only thing that they hear of. Pero once they learn and do their own research, which I highly encourage if they want to travel or like live here in the Philippines, they will realize people will realize na Philippines is not that dangerous. Like world is dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, every time, and I've already been to the Philippines every year, and oh my goodness, it's like, oh, a Korean was murdered by a Filipino, and it turns out not exactly. Yeah, the Filipino pulled the trigger, but it was another Korean paying that Filipino, like 10,000 pesos or 20,000 pesos, which is life changing money for some of those guys. And yeah, he pulled the trigger. It wasn't done on the Filipinos Accord. It was done on some other Korean wanted to get in on that business or want to wipe that person out because I'm not saying a lot of the Koreans that live in the Philippines, are all criminally insane, or criminals because there's some Koreans that move out to like Angela City and places, and they're actually criminals in Korea, so they go out to the Philippines and run their stuff. But yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, it's always another Korean killing another Korean using a Filipino just for that fact.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, be careful on your own, but the people here are so nice, and if you're careful, it's a great place to live, and the weather is always so
Oh
good.
yeah.
I would recommend it better than being like four season country. I prefer this one.
Yeah. Wow, beautiful. And just to get back at what you said about like you go, I mean, like once in a while because your brother is in Korea, right? And you kind of feel more Filipino than Korean, even though you were born there. Going back now, do you kind of feel you have like that reverse culture shock?
Oh yeah, sometimes I do get that culture shock. Maybe through the people, which has its cons, which has its pros and cons because I got used to the Filipino people where they are very welcoming and very warm to strangers. Like they would strike up a conversation agad-agad to strangers. But in Korea, it's usually if it's not my
Yeah.
business, you wouldn't mind. And I got culture shock there, but there's pros and cons. The
It's
pro is
everywhere.
nobody cares what you do, so you can do whatever you want without being self-conscious. The con is if you need help, you would have to actively ask rather than someone just reaching out to you.
Yeah.
Okay. And I know you speak Tagalog. How, on a scale from 1 to 10, how would you rate your Korean?
Maybe like 6.
6.
Yes.
Have you ever went to Korea and people they kind of like using some slangs that you didn't even understand? You're like, what
I
is
still
like
don't
in
understand
Korean?
it.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of slangs, especially like the elementary kids now, like the Gen
Yeah,
Z,
I
Gen
don't.
Mhm.
Alpha nowadays. I don't
Yeah.
know what they're
I
saying,
I
but
don't
there's this
understand the
term
slang.
kukuru pingpong.
What does it mean?
It's basically like whatever. Like
Yeah.
if you say something like if you nag me and like
Mhm.
don't do this, don't do that, I'm just like kukuru pingpong.
Yeah.
Sure.
So, okay. Thank you so much for watching this episode, guys. I know it was a short one, but I hope you guys have a. I mean, I hope you guys had a great time. But then see you guys on the next episode. All her details is gonna be on the description below. Please go and check her out as well. So see you guys. Don't forget to subscribe. We gone.
Yeah, so yeah, that was kind of crazy. I said, hey, I need to just do a reaction to this because, yeah, through these YouTubes, I kind of see like, Koreans that pretty much live in the Philippines all their lives. And I know there's probably someone where you say, of course there are tons of them, because, Koreans are usually the the biggest tourist group, 1 out of 4. Some actually live there, like in Cebu. It's 30,000 Koreans that live in Cebu as residents. So, yeah, I see it. And then, of course, because I live in Korea, it's easy for me to get to the Philippines, So it's just like a 4.5 hour flight to Cebu, 4 hour flight to Manila. So, yeah, so every year I make an attempt to go to the Philippines and just enjoy, the culture, the weather, because I miss so much of small talk, So because in Korea there is none unless you like she said, you actively ask for help. You actively ask, like, and of course, yeah, I don't even ask a lot in Korean either. I usually use English out here. So even if I, unless I need to really use Korean, I'll use it. But most of the times I use it to just talk with my dad in Korean, my dad's friend, if I need some help or something. And, and if, I finally warm up to the guy that's like, you know, okay, I'll speak some Korean after I kind of speak English with them. So it is what it is. All right. So if any of you enjoyed any of this, please give me the HKO special, help the king out. And wherever you are, stay safe, and I'll see you in my next video.